system. I mean, they are so sad. That's why I used to get mad at them. I realized these are damaged people. And the general public are literally just childlike, arrested development, brain-damaged people. I mean, we are under zombie control. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the whole system is just so big, and to wake other people up. I mean, I've got two little sisters. One's in grade school, and the other she's in 6th grade. And, I worry about them, and
that's why they want to get them young. If you teach children about manipulation early on, they become genius at it. Look, here's the deal. The system, this is key what I'm about to tell you. Listen very carefully. This is very important. Something I don't say enough or may have never even said. The globalists get their power out of massaging and manipulating hoaxes and trends that then get picked up by the general public and acted upon, and it's the mass of billions giving their power to it and playing along is what makes it go system-wide and be so huge, because we all start unconsciously repeating it, like saying, we're attacking Iraq. We're attacking Afghanistan. We're, the superpower. We're not a superpower. We're a military province, debilitated, destroyed, none of our infrastructure fixed, falling apart by offshore megabanks who let us take the blame for all the crimes they're committing. There's just levels to this. And so I always say, we shouldn't be in Iraq. We're not in Iraq. We're hijacked. That's like if a guy hijacks your plane, it's like we're hijackers. No, we're on a plane that's hijacked. Now, so as we unlock people's minds and they start seeing, that power paradigm starts heating up like a dynamo. And that's what scares the globalist. Because a zombie repeating mind control gives some power to the system. And in mass, it's very powerful. And it creates a feedback loop echo chamber. But as people actually activate and become conscious, literally wake up out of the matrix. It's not an electronic matrix. They're trying to build that and insert us into it with the electronics and the rest of it. But it's a false habitat and a false understandings that we add power to. As people wake up out of that and go, whoa, then it adds incredible power to accelerate the awakening. That's why they're trying to head us off at the pass. Look, the New World Order inside their New World Order system literally has alert, alert, critical, mind control system breaking. We have failures at multiple levels. I mean, they are freaks. Brzezinski, Hillary, all of them to their own groups are like, InfoWar, we're losing it. They're waking up. Get a war going. Add more chemicals to the water. Get it going. I mean, they are not invincible. Go ahead.
Also, back when Ron Paul was campaigning here in South Carolina, I made it an effort the weekend before the primary to go out into the downtown area and pass out Ron Paul pamphlets and information. Well, I came across one guy, and he's a vet, and I had asked him, what he thought about Ron Paul, and he said, I love everything about Ron Paul. The only thing I do not like, and the only reason I'm not voting for him, oh, mind you, he's voting for Rick Santorum, but I don't like his foreign policy. And I said, okay, so what you're telling me is you want the way it is now. And he says, no, I want other countries to know who's got the big guns, or who's. He didn't word it like that, but he said...
No, he personally feels powerful through the New World Order system. These guys, these cops, all of them that I talk to who aren't awake, they have pride in it. When this is a system that hates them more than the Iraqis.
That's the worst part, because whenever you try to tell them, like I had brought it up to him, and I said New World Order, and he kind of like, what are you talking about? I know you're not talking about the wrestling. And I was like, no, of course not. This is government. This is a serious thing. And I didn't even want to try to get into it with him, because you could tell the
Sir, if he thinks the New World Order is Hulk Hogan, which they did on purpose, of course, as part of the blurring everything. You need to move on. You're not going to be able to help him right now. I mean, look. That's what I'm saying. They buy into their own identity is in the system. And I mean, guys like that hear this show and that they're being poisoned on purpose. Doesn't matter if I have so many documents and books published by the globalist. They're not going to listen. And, that guy's kid could die of cancer. He's not going to listen because he's not going to admit somebody killed his kid. Then he'd have to do something about it, see? And he's not going to do that. He's going to go bury his kid, and everybody's going to cry at the funeral, and that's it. I mean, the guys, look, they are spiritually weak. They are psychologically weak, and all you can try to do is plant a seed. I would move on to those that are already partially awake. I mean, you let the dead bury the dead. Knock the dust off your feet. No pearls before swine. Try to give somebody the knowledge in a loving way. They're under zombie control. Just say, I'm praying for you. You know, and a lot of times if you try to convince them nicely, they get a power trip like you're trying to sell them. And they're aware of that. Just say, you know what, pal, enjoy yourself. I appreciate your call. Yeah, you're not going to... That's, I mean, people like that. I mean, that's one of the big control systems is when they think it's their military and their country and that everybody's, you know, ooh, they know I'm big. Oh, yes, they know you're very big. They use you for a guinea pig. They're training paramilitary to kill the veterans. They hate your guts and constantly talk about how you're the enemy and the number one threat. But see, he's the type who'll go along with the system. He's that 30% or so that'll serve up evil. And because they're the good guys. See, well, I'm a good guy, so I torture. Well, I'm a good guy, so I do this and that. Carol in Oregon, you're on the air, and then Leon and others. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, Carl from Oregon.
Carl, sorry, brother.
Oh, that's all right. I just have to apologize that I called in so much recently, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Sir, I don't even know when you did call in, but go ahead, you're on the air. We don't screen your calls. You're just on air.
Very good.
People always call on the show and want me to screen their call. I mean, you're on.
All right. My church has been co-opted, I think. I go to the Adventist church, and I try to talk to the senior pastors a couple of months ago. Because, you know, I called in before, and I told you I left California because of all what's going on down there. Of course, a couple of callers called in, and they're you know, all the news is going on now, how it's becoming a police state down there. That's the reason why I left. But I had a good church I went to down there, and they told me to go to an Adventist church. That's the best church to go to because they worship the best in the Scripture. They worship on the right day. You know, they are into good health and food and nutrition. I went to this nice church here. I found a very nice one, but I talked to the senior pastor and I said, hey, what do you think about what's going on in prophecy today? What's going on? And what do you think of this show that I listen to, your show? And he says, oh, brother, you know, they'll drive you crazy. Don't go there.
Yeah, well, the Seventh-day Adventist, on average, I've known some are very good, hardworking, smart people. And they're, you know, supposedly about being healthy, but they never tell you GMO. I mean, GMO is a bunch of bacteria and insect genes added and is deadly. I mean, you might as well be drinking Jack Daniels every day by the gallon. Be better for you. And they're like, oh, it's fine. And yes, the big denominations, I know this, the Seventh-day Adventists are the only group of test subjects that actually volunteered. Seventh-day Adventists in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it hadn't been declassified since, we're only up to the 80s, volunteered to be in experiments, some of which were semi-lethal, killed people. And they because the church told their men, go be part of this Pentagon test. And Seventh-day Adventist, for whatever reason, I mean, it's all the big denominations. I mean, clergy response teams are over 100,000. Covert preachers are FEMA officers, part of InfraGard, spying on their flocks, telling them submit to tyranny. And so he's probably a InfraGard or at least clergy response team. If it's a big church, I mean, you better believe he's got files on everybody in the church, and you were reported to Homeland Security. Not like he did anything wrong, but they're just getting ready for the arrest and everything. So he probably is an outright servant of the New World Order. I want to hear more about it when we come back.
Did you ever think you...
You know, what I know about Seventh-day Adventists, because I don't get into all these different Christian sects and groups and all of them fighting with each other, is that my mother, right around the time I was born, went to work, and I always get it confused because she went back and forth at the Dallas, was it Dallas Morning News or Dallas Times Herald? I think it was the Dallas Morning News. She hates it when I talk about her on air. I better not. And then for a while, because of family friends, she was the main secretary for like one of the biggest Seventh-day Adventists in the country. He was like the big head guy in Dallas, had a national TV show. And he could like get Nixon on the phone. He'd get mad about, you know, corruption or sex stuff, you know, being pushed in Congress or whatever. And he'd say, get me the White House. And she remembers sometimes him actually being able to get through to, head people at the White House because she was the secretary. She's worked there a few years because she could work part-time and she wanted to take care of me. But she said, the guy would almost jump up and down angry at corruption and run around doing stuff and had a national TV show. So he was certainly a good guy, according to what she said. Because last time we talked about that is we were talking about Bobby Vaughn, who was the John Bircher who'd come over to the house. He died of brain cancer a few years ago, longtime family friend, and talk about the New World Order. I remember hearing it, from the time I was like a year old. He was over the house like every day. He was a next-door neighbor. He was a nurse. But then also she said she heard New World Order talk from the Seventh-day Adventist guy. And I can barely remember his name. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to get it wrong, but I know he had a national TV show, and it was like a big deal. But I don't know about the Seventh-day Adventist now. I don't know much about them. I know about, Ellen White or whatever. I read part of that book. But I'm just not going to get off into it. But yes, if your preacher is Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, Jewish, Imam, whatever it is, and somebody says, what about this radio show that's talking about New World Order and corruption, and they're like, oh, just don't go there, it'll drive you crazy. That's the standard line of just don't worry, don't get involved, you just don't trouble yourself. You don't want to get persecuted or you don't want any trouble. That's clergy response team. In fact, I've shown you years after we gave you the documents and everybody balked at it. Oh, there's not 100,000+ secret preachers trained for this to tell their flock, give the guns up, go to the FEMA camp when they say, do all these things you're told, take the inoculation, and then they have clergy response team on Louisiana TV going, it was the pastors that told everyone to go to the camps and to be ready for forced inoculation or whatever's needed during martial law. And it shows the preacher saying, do what's of the Lord. Don't worry about things. You just do whatever the authorities say. That's Romans 13. You don't trouble yourself. That's a direct FEMA doctrine, Hitler's favorite Bible verse, Romans 13, out of context, that they use to whip you on the head with. And if you're hearing that out of a preacher, they've been programmed, and you might as well go to the extreme and go join the Church of Satan. And I'm being sarcastic, but you might as well just know what you're dealing with, is my point, than being told don't be involved. That's the opposite of what Christ taught. That's the opposite of what's in the Bible. Don't ask me to give you doctrine for your Christianity or whatever. I'm just telling you that the reason Christians won't fight corruption is because every major denomination is getting rid of their preachers. I went to a church here locally. I'm not going to get into what denomination or whatever. So it's one my family goes to, and I went sometimes. And they had a preacher that was a little bit anti-war, anti-corruption. It was a little left-leaning, but kind of old left. It was a Methodist church. And I would get drug in there. And now he's gone. And it's Bill and Melinda Gates are going to save us. And we're all for liberating people's sexual civil rights, basically. It turns into that. And that's what the churches have all turned into. And guns are bad. And, I see the Catholic churches sending out letters, turn your guns in, it's of the Lord. And, open the borders up, it's of the Lord. And they're just globalist tools. Period. You cannot debate that that's what they're doing. Just like in Russia or China, the churches have been taken over. But did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah,